so there's an open seat. The Democrat candidate is Moira Dunn. The Republican candidate is Mark Batinick, and they're nice enough to both join us in our WJOL studios. Maura, thank you very much for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And Mark, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks for having us.
You bet. Absolutely. So what I thought we'd do initially here is just get a background on each one of you, and we'll start with Moira today. Mark, or Moira, I should say, tell us about yourself, personal life, where you're born and raised, and your family, and things like that.
Sure, Scott. I'm a lifelong Will County resident, born and raised in Joliet. I've lived in Shorewood for about 10 years now. I earned my undergraduate degree in finance from Miami University in Ohio. And after that, I went to law school at DePaul. During law school, I actually had an undiagnosed brain tumor. So I moved back to Will County my third year of law school with my parents in Shorewood. Finally, the tumor was diagnosed right after law school. I underwent successful brain surgery and treatment. 4 years later, I passed the bar and became a criminal prosecutor, which is what I do today here in Will County.
Okay, here in Will County. Mark, what about you?
Mark Batinick. I was born and raised in Lansing, Illinois, which is an important part of the story and why I'm running for office. It's a border town. I went to the University of Illinois with a degree in business education, so I do have my teaching degree with a business background. I chose to move out to the district as soon as I graduated college and decided to start a business. Moved out here, started a business, married, 5 children, and we'll get into more about how that affects my choice in running.
5 children?
5 children.
5 children. Ages?
5 through 18. 5, 6, 11, 16, 18. So we certainly get, we get somebody complaining about boyfriend issues and somebody that missed the toilet. So a little bit of everything in my household every day.
All right. The rules are simple in this. I'm going to ask each one of them a question. They'll have about a minute to answer that question. And I want this to turn into a conversation. The other person will be able to answer the question second, and then we'll come back for rebuttal. And then later on in the hour, too, they've each been invited to ask the other a question. We may have already gotten to it, so they may have to come up with another one, but that's what we're going to do. And we'll try to move this along as quickly as possible, and we'll do this over several segments as well. But, Mark, your turn now. Why Illinois State Rep? You talked about your background. You talked about your family. Why do you want to become an Illinois State Rep?
Well, like I said, I grew up in Lansing, Illinois, which is a border town. And right when the position came open, I was coming back through Indiana. I drove down Indianapolis Boulevard through Munster, Indiana. That takes you into Lansing, Illinois. And you learn the most about economic policy when you look at border towns. And in Munster, you saw families, you saw traffic, you saw new buildings, you saw all this life, all this energy. And as soon as you cross the border into my former hometown where I grew up, 4 sale signs, 4 lease signs, and the road just opened up, and the statistics bear it out. And I'm in commercial real estate, and I've seen the effects of our bad economic policies. Now it's very visible there, but those are starting to creep into Will County, into where I live. So being in commercial real estate and dealing with small businesses and knowing exactly why they're choosing to either expand or move their businesses out of state and having clients leave the state, it's a frustrating experience. I see the problems. I know the solutions at a state level, and that's why I'm running.
Okay. Why run for state rep?
Well, I am a criminal prosecutor, so my background is a little different than Mark's. One of the things that I want to do, I also have a degree in finance, so I want to use that sort of because I see the problems, the crisis, sort of, that Illinois is in at this moment. And we need to make sure that we are being fiscally responsible. So that's something that I have practiced since I got my degree. I also, I want to make sure that our neighborhoods stay safe, that the people that are behind bars that need to stay there, and the recidivism rate is sort of addressed. I try to keep our neighborhoods safe. I want to give the people in Will County a voice down in Springfield. I want to be someone who can reach across the aisle, who can be bipartisan, and work on getting together and solving the crisis that we're in right now.
Yeah, and that's something I know we're going to touch on a little bit later on. Moira Dunn is here. Mark Batinick is here. This is 1340 WJOL. We'll do traffic and weather. We'll continue on with these two candidates for state rep in the 97th District. Literature and campaign ads. Today it's Mark Batinick and Moira Dunn joining us live in studio. Mark running on the Republican side, Moira running on the Democrat side. All right, a series of questions, and Moira, you're up, so let's go ahead and start with you. Do you support the income tax hike staying in place? Of course, it was raised just temporarily, but there's been talk about it staying where it's at right now. Will you vote for it to stay in place if you get in, or will you allow it to go back to its original level?
To roll it back. We are, as middle class, and I myself am middle class, I can't afford to take on any more taxes. I think since 2009, we've had the increase, and I think it should roll back as planned. I think we need to hold our leaders to their word. I think we need to lead by example, and, I think we need to find other resources to fill that hole.
Okay. Mark, what about you? Income tax rollback?
Well, number one, absolutely roll it back. Number two, I didn't support it in the first place. I was on record for doing that. Number three, a lot of people are talking about, oh yeah, I'm going to roll back the income tax. That's a nice thing to say during campaign time. I've got a 39-page plan on my website, mydreamforillinois.com, where I outline the waste in government and how you get to rolling it back. You have to have a plan to. You can't just say I'm going to cut taxes without having a plan to bring fiscal responsibility back to the state. I have a plan. It's on my website, mydreamforillinois.com. You can click on the 39-page plan, outline a lot of opportunities where there's some low-hanging fruit for waste. I also outline opportunities where we can bring in additional revenue through economic growth. The only solution to our problem is economic growth, and we have to be willing to fight for and do the things that are going to foster economic growth.
Okay, I'm going to ask both of you these questions, and I'll ask you this one first here. What are some of those things we can do? So if we do roll it back, that's less revenue for a state that's already way in debt. So what are one or two things, and more, I'll ask you the same question.
Well, one or two is a little short.
Right.
It's going to take a basket.
I don't have a 39-page plan.
Here's what we fund a lot of bad ideas in Illinois.
Okay.
I've outlined a ton of them. We're spending $6 billion with a B for a slower, more expensive way to travel from Chicago to St. Louis. Okay, and that's something I talked about in advance. 4 years ago, I talked about $425 million. That was a wasteful spending program for urban weatherization. The Sun-Times a week or two ago came out and called that program a boondoggle. So I've had the foresight, not the hindsight, the foresight to outline some of the wasteful programs. There's savings in Medicaid. There's a lot there.
Okay. Laura, what are a couple things that you would suggest to leadership in terms of cutting from the budget?
Well, I think, first of all, politicians should not be voting for their own raises. If you don't balance the budget, which is one of the number one things that the legislature is supposed to do, then I certainly don't think that you, A, deserve a raise, or B, get to vote on it yourself. It should be something that goes to the ballot to let the voters vote on that. I also think that we can take a look, have bipartisan committees where programs have to come in front and justify their ends, the means to the end. My plan is not 39 pages. My plan is to work with the community, and I've been doing that door to door for 10 hours a day, 70 hours a week, Scott, for months. And everybody is frustrated. And I think we all need to work together to figure out what some of the things are that we can do in order to cut the waste. Clearly, there is a lot of it.
We talk a lot on this program about leadership in the state of Illinois and how it's hard for the rank and file to take on leadership. More, you get in, your leader would be, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Mike Madigan. How do you take on a guy that pretty much runs the show in the state of Illinois?
Sure, absolutely. Well, Scott, I'm kind of fearless. I think kind of facing a life and death situation at a young age helped me realize, what's important. And what's important to me is integrity and I do it every single day when I work with people all the time who are in an adverse position than me. I'm a criminal prosecutor. I don't fool around. You know, this is something that I'm going to have no problem, and we need to get someone there in the legislature who is willing to say, no, we're not going to do it. And that's something that I've always been willing to do. I've always kind of been a feather rustler, and I hope to continue that.
Mark, what about you? I mean, so you'll be in the minority if you do win and go down there. You might have a Republican governor or not. Let's say Rauner wins. He wants something from you. How do you stand up for your own principles?
Well, a couple things. We've had a lot of candidates that have been funded by Mike Madigan say that they're going to take on Mike Madigan, and it hasn't happened. If somebody wants to call on the show later and give me an example of that, I'd like to hear it. The Chicago Tribune said that my opponent is bankrolled by Mike Madigan. She's gotten over $400,000 from Mike Madigan. So I just haven't seen it happen. In terms of taking on leadership, I'm a solutionist. I have a set of things that I stand for that are very bipartisan, important, and I stand by those beliefs. The reason I put my 39-page plan out there is I want to say specifically what I stand for, so you can see whether I'm standing for principled or standing for leadership. I have a history of standing for what's right, and it doesn't bother me who's in charge.
Okay. We're talking today with Mark Batinick and Moira Dunn. Moira, I'll allow you to rebut there.
Thank you. Scott, what I do want to say is that I think it's pretty obvious that both sides are funded by the one's funded by the Democrat, one's funded by the Republicans. So I think it's a wash. But what I will say is that, you know, I am different than other candidates. I don't know anyone else who has fought and survived a brain tumor and a stroke and gone on to become a criminal prosecutor. I have absolutely zero issues with saying no. I've never even spoken or met with Mike Madigan. I've never talked to him. So the Democratic Party is funding me because I am a good candidate. You know, Tom Cross, big shoes to fill. He was a very good bipartisan leader. He reached over and was willing to be a moderate and vote with both sides.
Okay. Let me just rattle one off here. We got about a minute left here in this segment. Term limits. Mr. Batinick, term limits, yes or no?
Yes, and I supported them, circulated the petition when they got bounced because of a quirk in the Constitution. I actually wrote an amendment to the state Constitution so that the lawyers can't bounce things like term limits, and that's something I'd like to talk about later.
Maura, term limits?
I absolutely think we need to have term limits. It's been 22 years since we've had a fresh perspective, and it's time.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to take the liberty here, and since we're on the topic, it'd be better to talk about it now than come back. Mark, you said you wanted to talk more about what your thoughts were regarding the Constitution and term limits.
Sure. We want to talk about bipartisanship. I'm going to talk about, populism. We don't have the rights in this state that other states do in terms of voting for things directly as a public. And we circulated for term limits. It was a monumental effort. They got bounced on a technicality.
And they got more than enough signatures, too.
More than enough signatures. It's a silly quirk that the courts use. Michael Casper, Madigan's lead attorney, bounced it. Everybody complains that the state constitution doesn't offer a solution to that. I've offered the solution. I've offered a way to give the citizens more power. If there's a state where people deserve more power, it's the state of Illinois. It takes a little power away from politicians and gives it to the people directly. It makes it easier for citizens' initiatives to get on the ballot.
Briefly, what is that solution?
It does three things. It eliminates the line from the Constitution that says all citizens' initiatives are limited to structural and procedural subjects of Article 4.
Okay.
It's a little wonky thing. Right. It lowers how many signatures you need to get something on the ballot, but it makes it a hard 60%. It makes it a supermajority to get something passed, because I don't think you should change the Constitution willy-nilly. So it's a way to get citizens involved in our process where they're frustrated now, but it would only things would pass that have a supermajority of support by the public at large.
All right. Maura, you want to comment on that?
You know, what I really think is that the people get to vote for who they want to represent them. And, the 97th district, knocking on doors, talking to people every day, most people do want term limits. So, I think it would be a good amendment to the Constitution. But I do think we need to remember that the Constitution is a sacrosanct document. And you're right, there's a lot of legalese involved in it. And we need to make sure that we're not changing it willy-nilly.
Okay. This is Will County's News Talk Sports 1340 WJOL. We'll continue on with Mark Batinick and Moira Dunn running for state rep in the 97th district right after the news.
1340 WJOL, Will County's News Talk Sports. Morning, noon, or night, we've got them talking.
741, Slocum in the morning on 1340 WJOL, the first of four in a series of debates today. It's Moira Dunn against Mark Batinick, state rep, 97th district. We continue on here on 1340 WJOL. Let's talk about an issue that I think both of you have mentioned in mailings. Let's talk about supporting taxing retirement income. And I believe you're first up, Mark, this time around. And actually, Maura, I believe you're first up this time around. Sorry about that. Supporting taxing retirement income, pensions, and Social Security. We are in a budget. I don't even use the word crisis. That's not big enough, a big enough word. We're in trouble. We're in serious trouble. $100 billion unfunded pension liabilities. Retirement, taxes. Maura, where do you stand on that?
Well, I think, first of all, I'm glad to have a finance background because it's something that I'm used to listening to. And, let me make it real clear. I do not think we should be taxing retirement income. We cannot tax our way out of these problems, and we need to come up with other solutions. And along with that, the pensions, I think my opponent believes the we should all be turned into 401ks. And, the pension legislation is in front of the Supreme Court. They are deciding right now whether they're going to take it up or not. And what we need to do is wait for that. And then if they do come back and say it's not constitutional, which is kind of what has been indicated, we need to make sure that everybody is included in a solution. Taxpayers, stakeholders, teachers, retirees. I think it's really important that everybody has an actual seat at the table to come up with a solution.
Okay, and I do want to talk about solutions in a moment, so hold your thoughts on that. Mark, what about you? Taxing retirement income, pensions, and Social Security.
100% disagree with the idea of any new taxes and taxing it. I don't know where my opponent has got it. She's mailed stuff accusing me of wanting to tax retirement. I don't know where that came from. We need to reverse the trends, and adding taxes is not going to help reverse our bad trends. The average household leaving the state makes $67,000 a year. The average household moving into the state makes $55,000 a year. That's a bad trend. On top of the fact that more people are leaving the state than moving into it, we need to do the things to foster economic growth to reverse the trends. Do I get a minute to rebut the pensions?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Well, but I do want to talk about ideas, and it's not fair to say, well, what are you going to do to fix the budget? Because there's been a lot of people there before either one of you that haven't been able to do it. It's a big problem. But go ahead, Mark.
Well, on pensions, I have my teaching degree. My wife was a teacher. After my youngest gets into first grade, she'll probably go back into teaching. My sister-in-law teaches special ed for over 20 years in Cal City. My mother-in-law is a current teacher. The current regime is responsible for the pension mess that's been happening. Democrats have had complete control of the state for 12 years. Here's my goal with pension reform. I would not want my retirement in the hands of Mike Madigan. Anything that's been promised needs to be kept. And this has been on my website for over a year. We need to keep the honest promises that we've kept. We need to come up with a system that's fair and sustainable. And we need to get people's retirement out of the hands of politicians. That's the number one thing that needs to happen with pension reform.
Okay. Maura?
Well, I think it's a real easy fallback to say that it's automatically the Democrats' problem. Scott, this has been something that has, culminated over the last several decades. The legislature as a whole has been robbing Paul to pay Peter. And, it's not fair to the retirees to now change the rules at the end of the game. So we need to make sure that the retirees get what was promised, and we need to work to figure out how we are going to meet the needs of the current pensions.
Right. But what happens if the state goes belly up and there is no money? Which is a distinct possibility. We've seen it happen in municipalities across the country. California, I think, leads the country in number of towns who have gone belly up, and then they get absolutely nothing at all. So there's got to be a pool of money created somewhere to pay these pensions because there's not enough.
Well, there absolutely. I think everybody knows that there's going to have to be compromise, and we're all going to have to work together to figure it out. I don't think it's a simple answer as, let's get rid of the fleet of planes that we have. That's a drop in the bucket. We can also, but there are things that we can do. I support doing a line-by-line analysis of the budget, seeing where we have waste. And I also support having, as I said, bipartisan committees that programs would have to come in front of, justify why they used the money last year, how are they using it efficiently, and why they should get more for the next fiscal year.
Mark?
Number one, retirees should get what they're promised. Anything that's been promised, honestly, they should get. Okay? Mm-hmm. There's been some situations where somebody worked for a day, got a six-figure pension. I'm fine with eliminating that. That has to happen. What Ms. Dunn is talking about is zero-based budgeting, which I am a proponent of zero-based budgeting, as opposed to just saying you got this much this year, you should get this much more next year. There certainly is efficiencies. There's probably $500 million in the procurement process of savings. But I'm going to give you two ideas you haven't probably heard about anywhere else that are very common sense, solutionist ideas. A lot of people talk about work comp reform and how that affects businesses. We pay a lot of money for workman's compensation insurance in this state. We pay 151% of what an average state pays. People talk about how that hurts job creation. One thing nobody's talked about is how much that hurts government. Government's the largest employer in the state. Back of the napkin math, I'm trying to get people to do some research on this. There's potentially over $100 million of savings to the state just in doing common sense workman's compensation reform. Another thing, Indiana enacted just an option, not a requirement, but an option for health savings accounts for its employees. That saved Indiana $22 million a year. A state our size could save double that, because it's double the size of Indiana. Those are a couple of common sense solution things, very bipartisan ways to save a significant chunk of change.
It's 7:48. This is Will County's News Talk Sports, 1340 WJOL. At this time in the program, we're going to open it up to the candidates here. They were each asked to prepare a question for their opponent. And let's start with Mark. You're first up, asking Moira anything you'd like to ask her.
You talk about your background in finance. Last week, the State Board of Elections voted unanimously that you violated campaign law on several occasions. One quarter you had 16 entries and you failed to report 13 of them. If you can't balance a few $1,000s in a campaign account, why should we expect you to be able to balance $35.5 billion?
Well, Mark, it's real easy for you to memorize numbers and read. Anybody can read stuff. But what you don't know is that when you are a judicial candidate, you have a wall between yourself and any of the money that comes in. You don't know who it's from, and you don't know how much you get. There are treasurers that handle that. I had treasurers, and they were helping me. They were volunteers. They made some errors. They have been corrected, and I'm not sure if you've ever made a mistake in your life. It was my first time running for office. I have different treasurers this time, and I also have the opportunity to correct things if they go wrong. With the judicial election, you don't have the opportunity to do that because you're not involved in it. So this, and by the way, just so you know, maybe you haven't read this, the state board is fully satisfied with what I provided them, amending it, and no further action was recommended. So, I'm not real sure where you're getting your information.
Okay. Rebuttal, Mark, or no?
Well, number one, it speaks to who she surrounds herself with in terms of hiring. You can't do everything yourself. Number two, she's a third-generation politician. One of the things that wasn't filed was a big donation from her father, who was a former state senator and state judge. And
I'm proud of it.
The document said that they sent it to the board, to the staff, for civil penalties. That's what their amendment said.
Apparently, you're not up to date.
Okay. Maura, your turn for Mark. Any questions for Mark?
Well, I think everybody, I've heard at the door a lot that this has been a nasty election, and they don't like the negative mail. But most of all, what they don't like is that Mr. Batinick has attacked me on a personal level. Starting with putting my head in a clamp, and after he knew I had brain surgery, and then after being given the opportunity, Mr. Batinick, to apologize for insulting stroke and brain tumor survivors, you chose to say that my thoughts on that were ridiculous, and that the idea that you made fun of me was ridiculous. Then following that, now I really don't have a problem with the first mailer. Things get ugly, that's fine. But you know what? After that, you sent my face on a coffin. And I want to know, are you willing to now denounce those and say you're sorry to all the stroke survivors and brain tumor victims?
Okay, first of all, a generic mailer of a video arcade game is not interpreted by anybody that I've talked to the way you're interpreting it.
Oh.
Number two. Mm-hmm. The Republican Party wanted to put out 4 mailers. Both the mailers you speak of were not what I put out. If the easiest way to tell a mailer that's been put out by me and approved by me is one that says, "Wait a second,
hold on."
Is one that says, "Read my plan, my 39-page plan."
Right.
I have the mailer up on my website. She's made a lot of. You launched your campaign with the $53,000 a week ad buy of lies, and you want to know why the campaign is negative.
How does that answer my question?
I am answering your question.
I'm asking if you're going to denounce my face on a coffin.
Mark, let him finish, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Almost every one of your campaign ads have been about me. I have been unable to find positive pieces about your campaign. You launched your campaign with a $53,000 a week ad buy of lies. It's on. I had to put up a website, and the link to that website refuting all your lies. Your walk piece is a hit piece against me. I got to give you credit. I've never seen somebody walk door to door with a hit piece against the. I'm glad you're proud of the fact that everything about your campaign has been a negative thing about me. It's Mark Batinick running against Mark Batinick. When you will blatantly lie to the tune. When you blatantly lie to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, documented lies, it is hard to feel. It is hard for your comments to seem credible. If they offended you or somebody else, absolutely not the intention. I so believe that wasn't the intention that I've been willing to post the mailer on my website, and they can look at it and people can decide for themselves. It's a generic mailer about an arcade game. But this was a race to the gutter started by your campaign with hundreds of thousands of dollars of lies, outright lies. That's the way I answer the question.
Maura, your negative pieces?
All of my pieces are about the issues, and they're all sourced. Every single one has a source where we receive the information.
Okay.
I got to talk about the source. Her source is on the website. Her source is a press release by Jim Durkin over the summer. So she accuses me of a lot of things, and her source, and she puts a little source, but I actually put the actual document. On my website, I have documents, not just a little blurb like, oh, go to the Chicago Tribune in February. Okay. I have the actual documents that people can read. That's about being credible. If you want to be credible, go to the website and look at everything. I am comfortable with everybody making a decision and going to the website and looking at all the sources. Even we use her sources to disprove what she is saying.
Okay. All right. We're going to wrap things up here right now. Maura and Mark, I'm going to give you each a final statement on this. And I think the opening statement came from Mark, so Maura will have the final closing statement come from you. So, Mark, you go first with your closing statement here.
You know, there's a lot of problems in this state, and people have bashed it, and we've bashed it here too. But this is a phenomenal state. And one of the things outlined in my 39-page plan is how phenomenal this state is. We lead the Midwest in rail, river, and road.
We have Lake Michigan fresh water, which is a problem in other parts of the country. We have great universities. We have some of the best agriculture in the world. We have energy in southern Illinois that's not being tapped. One of the analogies I use is that it's like if this were a race of states and the states were race cars, we're a Porsche and we're losing to Yugos. And the problem isn't the car. The problem isn't the state. The problem is the leadership that's there driving it. I was doing some research last night, and this is from 2013. We ranked 50th in the funding of education, and with all those resources, that's not where we should be. I outlined the problems, but I also outlined the solutions, the common sense solutions that can turn the state around and make it great again.
That's Mark Batinick. Moira Dunn, your time to wrap things up.
Sure. Thank you. Again, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
I consider myself a moderate. I believe my opponent is extreme. We don't need more gridlock in the state legislature. I don't believe that I would be so bold as to put forth a 39-page plan. What I want to do is work with the community, get their perspectives, and this election comes down to character. I've spent my life doing public service. I am a third-generation public service person. For me, it's shocking that Mr. Batinick would have so little empathy in regard for stroke and brain tumor survivors. We don't need more people like that in Springfield. We need someone like me who's compassionate, fiscally conservative, tough, disciplined with our tax dollars, and someone who is committed to bipartisanship, someone who doesn't give up, someone who's a fighter, but also someone who listens, who cares, who works with others to get results, and that's me.
Moira Dunn, thank you very much for your time. Mark, thank you as well, guys. We appreciate it. Tomorrow morning, we'll have Dan Kennedy and Dinah Lennon Archambault in, 12th Judicial 2nd Sub-Circuit. 97th District highlighted today. If you're coming in late, we'll have it up in our podcast section at WJOL.com.